think we are recording now. So we'll start again everything from scratch like last time, just for practice. So I'll go in my Finder and I will create I'll create a project on my desktop and I'll call it Flexbox. And if you already have a project that you started, that's okay. You can keep working on that one. You don't have to start new one. So I'm gonna go here, find, say, add folder to workspace, and then just select that folder I just created, and it's empty right now. We're gonna go create new file, index.html. We'll have CSS folder for our CSS, and we will have this time that is different from last time. We're gonna have SCSS folder, and in that one we will put our SCSS stuff. So we will tell Koala, okay, pick this SCSS file and then compile it and save it inside CSS folder. And then we won't do any JavaScript this time, so I won't create JS file folder. So inside it, let's create our HTML markup really quick. So the shortcut, like we already learned, if you use Visual Studio Code or probably every editor has this. Here is you type exclamation point and then just do a tab, and it kind of creates this basic markup for us. We'll do the title Flexbox, and we want to link our CSS file. So we say link style sheet is our rel property attribute, and then our location will be CSS folder. We don't have this file yet, but we will create a file called style.css. So let's create that file real quick. Inside our CSS folder, it's gonna be named style.css. It's empty right now. Let's save index. Just put h1 howdy class so we can see something, and then if we go right click on our index.html, we do live server, it will open in our browser that page. So that's our basic setup we did last class, and we'll start from here again. So just give me 1 second here to check something. And let me just check. Where is it? Damn it. Okay. So we will set Koala up now so we can start using SCSS. We won't be going in detail over that because we're gonna do that next class, but we will set it up now, just as a starting point. And next class we will go deep into SCSS, but we will use it now for some basic things, and kind of to give you a sense of that. So let me just open here, Koala, we said. Okay, so let's go back to our code. We won't be doing anything inside style.css because we will be using SCSS, and we will tell Koala whatever we write in SCSS, compile it and create style.css file off of it. This one, right? So that does that make sense or not yet? Not really? Okay. So so far you were working directly into style.css file, right? You would go and you would set up background color, fonts, all that stuff. But now we will have another file in this folder. We're gonna call it main.scss. And here we can write all this stuff. We're gonna say background. We're gonna say where first. We're gonna say, okay, I want my body. Come on. I want my body to have background color.
You said main dot what?
.scss.
And what is the main difference again between the style.css and the main CSS?
So SCSS will use Sass, right? So that's actually extension for Sass, and that gives us a lot more functionality we can write inside. We can use variables, we can use nesting, mixins, all that. But browsers, they don't know what SCSS is, so we need Koala to process that, compile it, and then create that style.css for us. So we never will write anything inside style.css, as that's a difference. So far that's what we were doing, but we won't do it. Won't do that anymore. So let's just, for example, do yellow here. We're gonna save this, but remember in our index.html we're referencing style.css, and that's empty right now. There's nothing there because we are using this other file. So we need to open our Koala software. Let me just pull it back up there. So
I'm sorry, let me just go back.
Yes.
On the CSS folder, is it important that the main CSS
That's-
is inside of it?
that's inside. You see when this little arrow is down, that means that this file, and you see it's indented a little bit.
Got it.
So that means that it's inside SCSS. So if I close them all, this is how it looks like. So this is my folder project. Then we have CSS folder inside. We have SCSS folder inside also, and then index.html. They're all in the same level, on same level. But then inside SCSS, we have this. You can call it whatever you want. You don't need to call it main.scss, right? You can call it however you like. I just called it differently. You can also call it style.scss, but I just didn't want to confuse you right now what is what, right? So off of this file, we will tell Koala to create style.css. So style.css is empty right now, but let's check Koala back. So inside Koala, that's what we did last time. You will import your project that we're working on right now. So I just created this Flexbox here. I'm gonna select it. Koala recognizes SCSS right away. You see here. So I'm gonna click on this file, and by default Koala has something set up that we don't need right now. So you click on this file here, and then you're gonna uncheck this compass mode right here. So you don't want that checked, because
What about source map?
source map you can have if you want. I can tell you what they are, what that's gonna do.
It was auto checked.
Okay, yeah, it depends maybe on the operating system. I don't know. For me, it comes up as compass mode checked. So you want compass mode to be unchecked, and let's select source map. Just that's good to have it. I just wanted to follow that next time with you guys. Maybe we'll talk about source maps next time, next class, because that's the original plan. I don't want to confuse you right now with that. So just have auto compile, which this means as soon as we save that SCSS file, we make some changes and we click save. That means that it's gonna Koala will process it automatically without us coming in here and click compile, right? So we can come in every time and click compile if you want, but just slows us down. So if you have this clicked, then it's gonna compile that for you right away.
So what is Koala doing? Like, what is the processing?
So browsers, they don't understand this SCSS file. They don't know what it is. So you see here we set up inside that file, we set body background color yellow, and that should make our background yellow, right? But it doesn't know. And also we are not even referencing this file anywhere. In our index.html we are referencing style.css. So now Koala will take this code here and basically process it and save it or paste it inside style.css. But you will see why we're doing that, because inside SCSS we can use all those Sass functions that regular CSS doesn't have. You know, and that just gives you a lot more flexibility and a lot more opportunities, and you'll see in depth next class what SCSS can give you, or Sass. The most powerful ones are Sass and less. We are dealing with Sass here, and the extension is SCSS for that. Yeah, so let's set up Koala. We go back here. We saw that Koala already recognized this. One thing, we want to output style. It has several options, and we can see what they are. Let's have it nested right now just to see how it looks like. And the last thing we need to tell Koala is, okay, take this file and then save it to style.css. So we need to set output path. So I just right click on the file and say set output path, and that means when you compile this file, where to save it, right? And I want to save it, we said, inside that CSS folder and then style.css, right? That's where I want that to be saved. I click save. It's telling me, oh, there is a file there already. I said that I don't care, we can replace it, because it's gonna get replaced every time we do some change. And that's all we need to do, right? So we have it auto compiled. So let's go make some other change here.
Press compile?
No, because I can press compile and it's gonna do this, but I want to check if my auto compile will work. So auto compile is checked. If I go and do some change here and save the file, it should auto compile for me. So I don't need to go back to Koala. I should not really go back to Koala ever anymore, as long as I have it up. You know, it should do. Yes?
So, the step you just did where you, forgot what it's called, where you right click and,
set output path.
yeah, and I kind of got lost there. It says to pick a CSS
yes.
file, but it won't let me click it.
So you go set output path, and then you go to your wherever your project is, and then you select that folder, and it's grayed out. But when you click, it kind of shows it there. You don't have to click it. You can also name it as something else if you want right now at this point.
I just have to select the folder
Yes.
then?
Well, you need to click. You need to name it here, wherever it says save as. That's how that new file will be created. And that's the file that you want to reference inside your index.html, because that's what is going to get loaded.
And we replace it, right?
Yes.
Okay, I got it.
Okay, and then now let's go and just say, okay, I want maybe font size to be 2M, and I clicked Control S. Also, if you want to go slow way, you can do file and then save, but learn that shortcut. It's Control S, or on Windows is on Mac is Command S, and on Windows is Control S. I mean, every program has that, so I'm sure you guys are used to it. So I saved it. Koala did stuff, and you see my background is yellow, and my Howdy class is 2M's size. I didn't touch Koala at all, so I can just have it running in the background now. So let's go and remove this. Oh, let's just see what happens in our style.css now. So I opened it, and you see it created. So this is our SCSS, and Koala processed it and created this for us. It's the same thing basically, but later on when we start using variables and all that stuff, we can write it in a nice way inside SCSS, but then in CSS it's gonna be bunch more code. So I promised I'm gonna I'll show you inside Koala those other options. So if we select here, I want this to be compressed, which what you want to be inside your in production, for example, you select this compressed option, and now inside your SCSS you can go and is the font size okay for everyone? Yeah,
Yeah.
here? Okay. So inside my SCSS I can make comments. This is, oh my goodness, this
Mine
is,
didn't change the color though when it saved.
I'm sorry?
Mine didn't change color, the background.
Did you select that output path correctly?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have your link inside your index HTML? Are you referencing your style sheet correctly?
Yep.
Okay, yeah, well, we'll check probably. You have something. Okay, so can you open your main.css? Oh, so you see, you referencing style.css, but you don't have that anymore.
Isn't there here?
It's you need to put the folder. So this is inside your CSS folder. You see that? So can I do?
Oh,
So this is in
Oh,
comparing.
yeah.
So it thinks it's looking for style.css in the same level as index.css,
Okay.
but it's not yet. And this will work right now, fine. But try not to use capital letters for folder names.
Oh, okay.
Just use lowercase for everything.
Okay.
And try to save that now. And open the index. There you go, right? So now it's gonna do it every time you make some changes.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. So here you can write comments for yourself, right? You can do whatever you want. And since in Koala we said, okay, we want to be when you compile this file, I want it to be compressed. And what it's gonna do is gonna remove all the comments. It's gonna remove empty spaces. It's gonna compress the file to be like as short as possible, because the browser will load that the fastest. So let's go back and save that file real quick. So I'm gonna press and open our style.css, and you see the comment is not there. There are no lines. Everything is in one line, and this is the fastest way that browser will load. And we don't care about this style.css. We won't be looking at it at all. We still have our comments here that are good for us. Yes, you have a question?
Yeah. What happens if you change your mind, you want to change the color of the page? Would you just re-enter that in the main SCSS?
Yes, so we will only work here in this file. Style.css get generated from Koala, right?
So if you change your mind
So you just say I want blue, save. You see style.css will be regenerated and my page is blue, right? I mean, it's very nice color blue, right?
How did you get it on the one line? Sorry.
Well, that's what Koala did, right? We said here, we told Koala do it compressed. You see, it said output
compressed.
style, and I say compressed. You can do nested, which will be almost the same as we are writing it, but compressed will remove these comments. It will put everything in one line, and that's the best way to go for it, because we won't do anything in this file. That's all. We will be working in our own file here. We don't even need to have it open right now anymore here. We don't care about it. But it's good thing that in our SCSS we preserve our comments and all that stuff that we need to help us while we are working. So finally we're gonna start doing, let's remove this nice blue color and let's start doing Flexbox, what we said we're gonna do at the beginning, right? So this all makes sense so far, right? This Koala setup. We'll go in deep SCSS next time, next class, but this is the setup, the same setup we'll use next time. And I hope it makes sense, right? A little bit. Maybe it's still confusing here and there, but it will make more sense. So in our let's set up a couple of things here in our index. So we want to have, let's say, our main tag, and inside that we're gonna have, let's say, a section that is going to have class container. So you see what I did? It's so fast here. I don't know if we covered that last time, but you can type all this by hand. You can open this and type section, and then, oh my god, section, and then do class equals and all that stuff by hand. But when you're using Emmet, you can do name of your tag section, and if you do dot and then that means you're gonna create a class of that container. So I want my class to be named container. So if I press tab now, it creates section tag, adds class container to it, and it's closing it. So it's very handy, it's very fast. So inside that's gonna be our flex parent element that I mentioned earlier, right? And now we want some elements inside of that. Let's say we want three elements inside, and I want every element to have class item, so we can style them in our SCSS later. So we'll do let's say div, and we say class with the dot, and then we can do times 3. I think that's what it's going to do. Yeah. So I just said, okay, I want to create div. I want it to have item class, and then if I do *3, it's gonna create 3 those elements. And if I press tab here, it creates 3 elements for me very quickly.
Can you repeat that one again? I'm always forgetting the shortcut for it. It's a dot and then.
So if I want to create div element, I said div, and then if I want to add class, I do dot and then name of the class.
Okay.
So I want the class name to be item. I press tab and it creates that for me. Right, so I don't have to type, and you will see how fast you can adopt that, because you don't want to spend time typing, right? It's just so easy, nice to do that. And if I know now that I want 3 elements with the same class, so I'm just gonna say do this times 3, and then it creates all 3 of them. But now we're gonna have something different in every one of them, so we're gonna call this one, we'll add another class to this one. So the class item we will use to style what is common between all these 3 elements. Let's say we want background to be red to all 3 of them. So we have one class for all 3 of them. We say, okay, for class item, do background red, and all 3 elements will be red, right? But if I want something specific to each one of them, then I need to add another class that is specifically for that element. So I'm gonna do, the first one will be first, let's say, the second will be second, very original class names, and the third one. And then let's put some content inside so we can see what's going on. So let's do h2 tag, for example, and do, this is the first element. Here in the second one we'll do h2, we'll do this second one, and then in the third one we'll do h2, this is the third. Okay, and I'll save this, and then let's check our page. So there are the elements, right? Just listed one after another. Do you remember developer tools from last time in Chrome? When you click, right click on the page and you have inspect, or you go to the menu and you go to more tools and you go to developer tools. This will open this drawer here with the elements selected, and we can hover over our HTML elements and they're gonna get highlighted over there. Let me use my laser I love it. It's yay! I was so happy. I like this thing. Anyway, sorry about that. So
Or you
you
can just copy another website and send it. I'm just kidding.
was that?
Or you can just copy another website's, the CSS and just put it in your page.
I can do that, but
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
what is gonna be good for you then?
Yeah.
Step by step is always the best way to go to really understand what's going on. So if you hover over these elements here, you see the first one up there, and it shows you how big the element is. You see it's spanning all the way with full 100% the page, and it's one after another because we don't have any styles yet. So let's put some styles in place for every item. So for item class, which will apply to every one of these blocks, right? Also, we'll do container is the parent one. You see it's getting selected on the page. Container is all around all the items, and it's 100% width. That's by default, right, from the browser. So we'll go to our main.SCSS. Our Koala is running, so whenever we save this file, it gets compiled and saved as style.css. So we said our container class, we want that to be, let's say, let's put the background color first. Background color. And we want to be some light gray. I think this will work. See. And then we want to have width 100%, which it is, but automatically, but we want to set it so it stays that way in case we change something else. And the height we're gonna say let's be 500 pixels, just so we can have some room to work with. I'm gonna save this file, and Koala should compile this. Is this too light? Let's see. Looks like it's too light, so you don't really see any difference there, right?
What was the height?
I'm sorry? It's just too light. Color is too light. We need to do some darker color, I think. Let's see, D3. I saved the file in container. Oh, I know what's the problem. It's cached. So if you use live server, sometimes the CSS get cached, which means it's not gonna, when it refreshes, it still serves you the last version when you saved. So to solve that quickly, you can reload with the Shift and Command and R. This will clear the cache. Why it's not doing it? Did I remove style.css? The heck? Oh, maybe I misspelled something. I know how to do that. Yes, you see how nice I wrote container. That's why this class doesn't exist, right? And it says like, I don't care, that's not my class, so it's not getting affected. Anyway, you already used to that from me, so, and that happens, but you need to be careful with typing classes, you know that, of course. So you see now we got that color, background color. If I close this, we told it to be 100% width all the way, and then 500 pixels height. So that's what it's doing right there. So let's do some style really quick for our items here. So every element of those has same class item, right? That's how we set it up. Here, every element inside that container has item class, so we can go and style that class now, item. So what we want to be common for all three items? For example, we want them to be, let's say, with 200 pixels. So we want, and height to be, let's say again 200 pixels. So we want them to be a little square, and we want them to have border 1 pixel to be solid border, and when we want to be darker gray, which would be what color? It would be, what is going to be darker from D? It's going to be whatever. Let's use this 4343. Okay, save that, go back to your page, and you can see now the elements are this wide, but we said be height 200, but on our parent element we say height 500. So 3 elements by 200 is 600, right? So you see that the elements are getting out of that parent container, and we have messed up site, right? Because we didn't match the heights and the pixels, and our browser is doing it literally, and the elements are messed up. So you can, back in the day, you would like have to do the math and do all the pixels and all the stuff, and to get it right, and then count the borders, also 1 pixel border. If you have padding or margin, you need to count that stuff. So let's see, if I just put to my parent container, if I do, I want the display to be flex, which is the first flex property. It's display. So I can do I can come here and do it straight in the browser, in the code editor, save, and then see the results. But using this element, this console here, for simple stuff like that, it's very good. You can do it straight in a browser without saving the file, just to see how it's going to look like, right? You want to check something. For example, I want to see how this element first will look like if I change its color, right? Let's say. And here, you see the styles are right here. And you see I hovered over, clicked on this item first. Let's say I want to change to all the items, and I do background, and I do red, and you see it changes right away. So that's not gonna save, that's not gonna stay in my file. If I refresh the page, this change is gone. But this gives you opportunity just to quickly change something on a page and see how it's gonna look like before you start doing to the page. Later on, you will know what you want exactly, and you're gonna go and do it probably straight in the file. But I do this all the time, every day, because I just let me see how it's gonna look like if I change this, and I just take a look really quick. Okay, that's gonna be good, and then I go and start working on the file itself. So here we want to look what's gonna happen if I add to this container, which is my parent container. I want to add this display flex property, and look what happens to the elements. They go next to each other and they stack. And all I did, I didn't do anything to the elements itself. I did the parent container. I said, okay, I want you to be flex, which tells the browser, okay, that means that I'm gonna work with my elements inside you to do some arrangement around the site, like layout changes. And with this, you would have to go, back in the day, you would have to go, okay, float this left, float this one left, float this one left, then clear float on the parent container. And if you forget something, you get elements going outside of their parent element, and you were like, why this is not aligning that it should be, right? So we're gonna go and make this change permanent inside our style sheet. And then we said, okay, our parent container will have display to flex. Save, go back, and the elements are stacked. Remember, the red color was the one that I changed inside the browser, so that's why when I refresh, it doesn't stay there. So this is first and basic property that you're gonna use to start with Flex. So now we're gonna be working only with a parent container, which is this container. We just set display flex and we saw the changes in the elements inside of it. So let's say what is other the next one that we might want to look is flex direction. It's called flex direction. So where is it? So I can use flex direction now, and there are several options. I can say, okay, I want the direction to be row, which is default. Let's do it and save it. So if we go back, nothing changes because that's the default value. If you don't mention it, that's what it's going to be. But what's gonna happen if we do flex direction and I said, okay, I want this to be column, and I save it, go back, look at that, just made him to be a column, to be in a column. That's amazing, right? Just with one property. And let's, yes.
So you put it down as column, right? And that's why they're all stacked
Yes.
now? But is it just going to ignore that that you put it down as 200 pixels height? Like, does it just ignore
Well,
that,
it's
or-
still 200 pixels height.
Oh, okay. Then why wasn't it? Then why wasn't
Actually,
it inside the box?
actually, you're right.
Oh, okay.
Because it's going to now, because we set to the parent. That's a good question. Thank you. Because we told the parent container to be 500, but we say you're gonna be flex. It tries to fit the elements inside with the most space that it has, right?
So
So
will it reduce it if it
so-
is 200?
so right now it's gonna change as much as it has space, right? You can change it to bigger size, but it's still not gonna do anything because it's trying to fit them inside their parent container, which is our idea, which what we want, because we don't want elements to go outside like as I started, right? I already had the element going out of my parent element, and that's not what you want because you're gonna lose all your layout all over the place. So we will work with the elements on its own inside. Right now we're just gonna make some changes on the parent element and see what's happening with the elements inside. So we can even work here in our browser. Let's put it back to flex direction. Let's put row, and you see it goes back to row, and it's just so easy. If you use regular CSS, if you're using floats and stuff like that, it's just more trouble. And we can make a little bit of spacing on this element. Let's just do some padding on a body, just so it looks a little bit more in the middle of that page. So I'm gonna do body, and I'm gonna do padding of 2%, which will add padding to all sides on my body. So you see I have some space here, just so we can see a little more what's going on. It added padding on all my sides. So those are just examples how to see what's going on. We won't be using this exact markup anywhere. You don't have to use this markup anywhere, but it's good for you to try out right now and see how the elements are changing, and that's gonna give you idea. Okay, if this in this section I want to have 3 blocks of something of text or whatnot, or 3 images, and this is how you can align them. So that's flex direction property, and you can see where you can do that already. I mean, if I go and let's do row here, which is default, but you can still have it there. So let's say this is my desktop version, but as soon as I'm gonna scroll this down, and you see the elements will start shrinking because they're trying to fit, and that's probably not what you would like to see on your mobile screen. So you can say, okay, as soon as my screen width gets to this, I want my flex direction to be from row to column, and you solved your problem with one property, right? And now they're gonna stack like this. Are you all familiar with media queries or no? Did you do media queries in Web 1? No, maybe some, depends on the, I guess, a year when you took it, right? So media queries are a way to split your CSS and say, okay, this part of CSS load only if my if my width of my browser is this much. So you can say, okay, if it goes less than, for example, for iPhone 6 or 8 is what was it, 365 pixels, I think, width, or 375. You say, okay, as soon as the browser is more than 375 pixels, then do these styles, for example. Usually you would split to 3. You will have 3 breakdowns. You will have very large, you will have tablet kind of range, and then you would have mobile screens, which will be everything that it's less of 375. Or you can research. Let me find it really quick to show you what I'm talking about. Media 2018. Just see. There was one nice. There's a lot of sites that kind of try to keep up with, because there's so many devices with different resolutions. You're not gonna be able to really work. You really need to research a lot to see, if you want to cover exactly all the freaking device out there. But you will catch majority of them if you split to 3, like large screens, medium screens, and then small screens, and then you want to make sure that your site looks good in all 3 of them. So does that make sense so far about media queries? You understand what I'm saying? We're gonna be doing the code itself, how to create media queries later. That's why I don't wanna kind of jump into that right now. But that was my example of, we're gonna say, okay, as soon as this width pass, then I want to change the flex direction to column, so the elements will stack like this, like column. Everything else, I want it to be row. So that's one example where you would use flex direction property. So let's go to some other property. Let's see. Flex wrap is the next one. So you saw here when I make the screen smaller, we set the width to be to the elements. We set width to be 200 pixels, right? That's what we said. But it's the same way as you notice for the height, right? The same way the width flex will try to fit inside the page, and you can see that in a lot of sites today that are wrong. I mean, you have paragraph and it's just getting like next to each other, and they get like this. You have 2 words in a row. I mean, that's terrible, right? So this what right now we haven't set anything up, and this is what he's gonna try to do. You see, it's trying to like squeeze them, in a row, because you didn't tell it to do anything else. So because the default value for flex wrap is no wrap, and if we tell this parent container, okay, I want flex wrap to be wrap, that means, okay, all the elements inside this parent container, if they don't have any more space to be their width that we told them to be, push them down to the next line, make space for them. So I just save that. Nothing changes here because it has enough room. As we go down, you see this one will start, it used to start shrink, but now because we said, okay, as soon as there's not enough space, push it down, and it's going to go to the next boom, right? So it keeps its width but pushing them down, and that's just with one property that we did, which is flex rep rep. So default is no rep. If you want some elements to, oh, is it? Let's just double check my spelling. Yeah, it's not, there is no dash, so it's no rep, one word. That's the default. We can also do, so we see here, let's say rep. So you see, this is the third, this is the first element, this is the second one. So we can also say, for some reason you want to have them reverse, you can say rep reverse, and this will, when it needs to wrap, when it needs to push that element, it's not gonna push it down, it's gonna push it up. Maybe you wanted that. So you see now the third element that needed more space, instead of going down, is gonna go up. It's just another option that you can do if you want to. Okay, so we'll leave these to wrap for now. What else? So there is shorter version of these two, so you can write these two properties in one line if you want. So let's comment this out. So you saw the shortcut I did here. This those two forward slashes are making that line to be comment. You comment that line, so it doesn't exist, right? But shortcut for this, I selected both lines and I click command and forward slash, or control and forward slash, and it just makes comments. It's handy shortcut also. I'm gonna save that, go back, nothing changes here, right? Because they're gonna get shrinked and all that stuff that was original. So we said we can write these two as one, and the way you can combine them is flex flow. Okay, and the first, whatever you write first, is the flex direction. So we want them to be row, and then the second value is flex wrap. So we want to be row and we want it to be wrap. And we save this, so this one line is the same as writing these two lines. Makes sense? So let's check it and see that that's true. So there they are, they're wrapped down. So now they still keep their size. That's why they go outside of the container if needed. Okay, so any questions so far? Makes sense? You don't need to memorize them right now in the module, in the class. Where is it? So let's go back here. Down there, these readings, those are, I put these links that I think are valuable for you guys, so you can go and visit those links and see this, go back and kind of read through these properties again and try them out on your project, or if you need to refresh. I mean, I don't expect you to remember them right now, right away, but it's good to try them out and see what they do, see them in action. So the next one that you will be using a lot, we are still working only in our parent container, right? Only in that container that holds these three elements inside. So now there is one thing that it's, if you use regular CSS to vertically align something in a div, it's pain. You need to do like, okay, I want this much padding, and I want the height precise this much, and it's just hard. Sometimes it was hard to make it. And with this justify content property and align items property, you are able to align items horizontally and vertically very easily. So the first one we're gonna take a look at here is justify content. So it's right here, and there are a lot of properties as our VS Code is showing us here. So if we say we want flex start, that means wherever that flex container starts, that's where I want you to align the items to. So flex start in this world is start is from the left, right? So as we read English language, so left is start, right is end. So this is the same as you would do. You probably are familiar with text align left. That's the same thing, but it's a lot more powerful because you can do you'll see now in a little bit those other. This is exactly the same as text align left, but there are other values that you can set that don't exist in text align. So let's just use this flex start just so you can see, and that's default. So right now nothing will change on our page. So they're all pushed to the left. You see, they're all pushed to the left side of the container. So let's do flex end just to see the difference. So we said, ooh, okay, save that, and boom, right there, they're pushed to the right. So this will be equivalent to text align right. So the one that, of course, you have center also. You can do center. It's gonna center them in the middle. But now what I love the most is you can do justify content space between. Wow, this is cool, right? So we don't have to care about so look, I'll show you first how it looks like. Look how I align the items just with one value, with one property. It made them it created space between equal space between them. So if you have like 10 items like this, it will calculate what is available empty space and it will make it between them. So it's pretty cool. If you want to do that manually by yourself, you would need to know how much is your width, and then you need to know, okay, my 3 items, okay, that's 600 pixels, so take out 600 pixels and whatnot. Yes?
What was the excuse me.
Yes.
What was the input for that one?
It's justify content, but it's space between.
Space between?
Yeah, that's the value. When it's very logical,
I
right?
was trying to put flex center, and I was like,
Flex start and flex end would be, flex start would be align them to the left, but they're stacked to each other, right? They're close. And then flex end is the other way. But these are the new ones that you can do with text align. You can say space between and just makes between. And another very cool one is you can do space around. So this will look a little bit different. You see what this did? Space around it? It calculated, again, spaced them evenly to the width, but then whatever the width between this space between these items is, like half of that is on the left and half of that is on the right. Right, so you see that this space between these two, half of that space is here and half of that space is there. Maybe you wanted that, and this one value is just giving you this opportunity. I think it's cool. I mean, it's just so, and the naming is logical, right? And what was?
Is that like when you're shopping sometimes, or you see things like they're all set up similar?
Yes, you see, you're getting associated right away with the shop, and that's exactly what you can use it for, right? And don't forget, if we push down, they're gonna still wrap because we have our wrap value still there. So they're gonna go, and as soon as there is no more space, the third one will go down, boom. But you see what it's getting now? It's getting space around, evenly spaced around, which makes it to be centered because it's by itself. right? It's just so, I think it's cool, really. It just makes life so easy. Then you have the third one would be space evenly. And I mean, I don't have to now, right, tell you what is it. It just makes sense. So now there is no half space there. So now it makes sure that every element has the same amount of empty space around it, right? So those are, you see how many different things we can achieve with just one justify content property. And we can go crazy, you know, you can make stuff however you like, but you have those, how you say that, different, you have ability to do different things now with just one property, for example. So let's see what we can else do on the, okay, so this justify content, that was all horizontally. We were working with our items horizontally, right? So let's keep them like this, space evenly on a x-axis, so horizontally. And then there is another property as cool as this one, and it does vertically alignments, which was very hard if you're doing it by yourself with the regular CSS, the old way. And vertically, to align items vertically, you will use align items. I gave it up early. I said to align items, you use align items. Anyway, so if you use align items property, you will work with your child items inside that container on a vertical axis. So the same way, if you say I want it to be at the flex start, that would be the top, and that's a default value, because if we do flex start, I need to do this, and go back, you see nothing changes because that's the default. If you don't mention anything, that's what it's going to be. It's gonna slap them to the top. Same way, you have flex end. This will push them down to the container, right? So you have it. You have that way. You have center, of course, as it will do the same way, and that's just. Was it center? Yeah, I think it was center. Yes. So to do this with a regular CSS old way, it would be a nightmare, at least for me, to center them horizontally and vertically, you know, and keep them that way. And now I can just use Flexbox, boom, boom. That's it, you know. I mean, Flexbox has been around for a long time, but the browser were not ready to recognize that, right? They weren't compatible with this. Now they're almost all browsers. As I show you in that other Can I Use site, you can see that it's widely now compatible with a lot of browsers, almost all of them. So you're safe to use it now, and it will show up on any browser. So align items. Oh, you can do, if you do stretch, that's a interesting one. Stretch would, let me just move this height. So if you don't have height set up, so let's just go back real quick. Let's remove, for the items, we want set up height. So they will have, comment this out real quick. So you see, by default, if you don't have any height set up for your items, and you have flex container, it will stretch the item through the whole height of that parent element. So you see the border, so it stretched them out all the way. Before we had height 200, that's why it was blocked. But if you don't have it, That's the default behavior that is gonna happen. It's stretch. And yeah, let's see, align content. That would be, I mean, there's a lot more that you will see on that. Go and read through those links that I gave you there and try to see what are other properties that you can use on a parent container. So again, we were just working with this gray container, the big one. That's what we were changing, and you saw how it's affecting the child elements inside of it. So we did not touch any of the child elements yet. But here we just put, let's give them some height back, and we'll remove this stretch because it's gonna get oh my god, I don't have my mouse again like last time. So you see they're back to 200 by 200. So just so we can see better what's going to happen now when we start affecting them individually. So let's work on the elements inside on the child elements, which every one of them has item class, and that's how we're gonna point them. So let's see, what are the most common for the child? There may be a little less properties for child items than for container, but still they can help you a lot and give you some nice kind of different ways of aligning them and all that. So they're called flex items or child items. And one that it's awesome, it's called order. So you can change order of these elements now of this. Let's just change these names really quick to, instead of just have numbers. Oh man, I need my mouse. Okay, so we just have numbers here. So you can rearrange these elements with CSS without changing your HTML, which I think it's cool. If you want it the old way, let's say old way, you can, before flex way, you can, no, cool, non-flexy way, you can, you need to go to index.html and go and change the code, right? You need to like cut this here and paste it in front of this one if you want to change their order. But now with the new flexi way, you can just change these CSS properties, and they're gonna change their order. So you remember that we added additional individual class to each and one of them. So the first one has first class, the second one has second class, the third one has third class. So by default they all have order 1, which means they're gonna be aligned as they are in your HTML. So this one is first in our HTML, it's gonna get first, and then the second one, and then the third one. But if we wanna say first to be second, so we want our number 1 to be in the middle, we're just gonna go and get this number 1 has class called first. We're gonna go here and we say, okay, I want the element with class first to have order 2. Save that, go back, and actually, because number 3 by default has 1 and number 2 by default has 1, our first element has order 2, so it shows up after all the ones, right? So now both these elements by default, they both have number 1, so they show up first. If we have more of them, they will all show up first. So this is order 2, but it's not necessarily going to show up as the second one. It's going to show up as the first after all the ones. Make sense? So if we want now to be this to be in the middle, we need to tell the 3 to be, what is gonna happen, what do you think what's gonna happen if we tell the third element to have order 2?
And is this just used to like to quickly rearrange things?
Yes, without changing your HTML, right? So we didn't change our HTML, it just showed up differently, which is cool. If you need something to change its order, you can do it with your style sheet. You don't need to go and change your code itself, right? Which sometimes it's very, very useful. One thing to note here, this, if somebody is using screen readers, like people with disability or something, they won't see this change. All they know is the code, HTML code, right? That's what they see. Google also will not know when it indexes your site. It will not be aware of this changing in order and stuff, right? So this is only inside the browser, only visually. Your code is still, first one is first, as you wrote it, that's how it is. But with these changes, you can make them. So, like, just to tell you again, every one of elements by default are order 1. And if 2 elements have the same order number, they're gonna show up in order as you wrote them in your HTML. So now we said number 1 to have order 2, and it shows up after our ones. So because these 2 elements have order 1 by default. So what will happen if we say, okay, I want number 3 to have order 2?
Would it show up 2, 1, 3?
Yes, because then 3 and 1 will have the same order number, but number 1 is first. It's in front of number 3 in our HTML. That's why it will show up there. So let's just take a look at this. So we're gonna say our element number 3 has class third, and we're gonna say, okay, I want you to be order 2 as well. And so now these 2 have the same order number, so they show in the order they are written in the HTML. Make sense, right? So now if we want, so actually now we achieved that our number 1 is in the middle. So if you have more elements, it makes more you can also do, if you do -1, for example, order, it's gonna show up always in the first position, right? It's gonna be before ones, right? So you make sure that it goes, and you can do 99, stuff like that. It's not gonna, I don't think you ever gonna do such a big rearrangement. If you need to change something that much, then you would probably just change your HTML markup. But this is a good way you want to switch things around easily and quickly. I think it's cool, cool feature, cool property. That's the order. So now we are working with the items, with the child items, right? And that's the order property. Question? No? Okay. So flex shrink would be, let's remove the width. On the items, yes. So now they are wide as their content tell them to be wide, right? So let's put some content inside so they actually get a little wider. Let's do a paragraph here, and then do lorem. Remember lorem shortcut that gives you a paragraph. So in the second one, let's do two paragraphs.
Was there a hotkey for the word width?
Yes, you just type lorem. Oh, you were not here last time, so you can type lorem. You know what lorem ipsum is,
Yeah.
right? So you can type lorem and click tab, and it gives you one paragraph of lorem ipsum text.
As
With
a word rep?
yeah.
How do you make it into a paragraph? Mine just goes like a straight line.
Oh, so yes, when you open VS Code, we'll just go all the way, and if you want to wrap the lines so they stay in your window, if you can go to, I use shortcut, but here I think in View, you can click toggle word wrap, and shortcut for that is Option Z or Alt Z on Windows. I just don't like, some people leave it and they scroll left and right the window. I just like to wrap like this so I don't have to. So let's our paragraph 2 to have lorem, and then if I want 2 paragraphs, I do start 2, same as I would do for the elements and all that. And then let's our third element to have, for example, again, 1 paragraph of text. So let's refresh. And now, because we don't have width, that's kind of too much, damn it. What would be the example of that? Let's just cut some words out so they stay in one width of the screen. Let's try to see this content right here. So okay, they're fairly, let's make this one a little more content. So they have different widths now. So you see, because we don't have width set up, the elements, of course, they're wide as they need to be. What is their content? And that's a natural for any browser, right? So I'm gonna remove this space evenly on the parent container that we set up earlier, just so we can have them stacked normally. So I'm gonna do space evenly. I'm gonna remove that, and they should just stack there.
What did you remove?
How'd you uncomment?
I just deleted this space. Remember justify content that we were using on a parent element?
Oh, yeah, space area.
Yes, so I'm just removing that, so it's going to be default, which is just tag them together to flex start. And then you see our order is still mixed around, so let's just remove the orders. So we are back to our beginning, to our default stuff right here. So now our first element is first, second, and third. So the next one I wanted to show you it's called flex shrink, which I hope that it will work on this example. I apologize, I don't have the prepared example for this, but basically you telling I want my elements to shrink or I don't want to shrink, or the definition is like defines the ability for a flex item to shrink if necessary, and you do it by numbers. So the default number for item, those are all our 3 items. We're gonna do flex shrink 1, and that's default. See, nothing changes. If we go lower, in my wrap, right? Yeah, we need to change the wrap value to remove that one, so it doesn't wrap, so we can actually see them shrinking. So as we go, you see they will start shrink, but
You remove the wrap.
yes. Let me see, I don't have that. Okay, well, let's try to see what's gonna happen if we do 2, but negative number. I'm not sure about this one though. Let's see. Oh, so you see the not sure on that one how to show you exactly. So I'll prepare some example that works, that makes sense right now with for next class with flex shrink. I owe you that one for next class, because it doesn't make sense with these elements as I have them right now. But we can do the next one, which is flex basis. And flex basis, you can just think of like width. Instead of saying like we had it before, we want our items to be width 200. You can say, okay, I want my flex width to be flex basis. I'm sorry, to be auto, and this is the default. This will have, it will make the elements to be wide as much as they need to fit their content inside. But if we say, okay, I want flex basis to be 200 pixels, it's gonna make them to be 200 pixels, same as width would be. But what is interesting, there are several things that they're not yet supported with in all the browsers, but you can read in the one of the links that I gave you. It says, if you say 20%, it defines the default size of an element before the remaining space is distributed. So it's a little bit different than width, but you can think of it the same way as width. Just if you work with flex, if you're using Flexbox, then instead of width, use flex basis. It's just gonna be more flexy. It's gonna behave slightly in a flex way than width it would be. But think of it as same as width.